Welcome to the webinar on how to achieve more with less effort for a successful 2023. I'm Anthony Hartcher, and I actually know everyone that's joined today, so I don't need to give my formal introduction. I just express my gratitude for you putting aside the time and spending your time with me. And I really hope to impart some knowledge on this area. I've certainly learned a lot about this topic of productivity over the course of last year. And it was through doing a course with the Martini Institute. It really resonated with how come I was procrastinating, hesitating, frustrating in particular areas. And now I know why. And that's essentially today's topic is I'll be sharing the why with you, empowering you so that you don't hesitate, frustrate, and procrastinate anymore. And if you do, you choose to. It's not, you don't feel the need to. So let's get into it. So I think it's always good to, I guess, set the outline as to essentially who this webinar is for, just in case. And given I know you all, I can see that each of the points is certainly ticked. So I'll just let you read briefly through them, but it's essentially a topic that you will only empower yourself if you take responsibility for your life. So it's certainly for those that really want to take ownership and take on the education and apply it in their lives. So I'll certainly I'll share some wisdom, and it's up to you to imply it and get results. So let's move on from the slide. So essentially, why do you or I procrastinate? It's really simple. It's essentially the task or goal that you're about to enact is not aligned to your values. It's not aligned to what's important to you. It's really that simple. And you're probably thinking, but it is important to me. And I question whether it's really important to who you are and you being your authentic self. Essentially, unconsciously, we're motivated to do what's true to us, what's true to our authentic self, and we consciously don't do things because our unconscious takes over. So consciously, we're procrastinating, and it's essentially, and our unconscious is doing the things that bring us more advantage than disadvantage. And I'm going to go through in terms of how you can connect and better connect with your values. And Amy, I know we've done a lot of discussion on values, and certainly you are very connected with your values. It's certainly for the benefit of James and Kathy that's joined us. So, but essentially, when we're procrastinating, we're doing things of lower value to us, of lesser importance. So, for example, when I procrastinate, it's cleaning. I don't value cleaning. I'm actually quite happy in an unclean environment. I don't need a really squeaky clean environment. And my wife loves a squeaky clean environment. And so she thinks I'm lazy in the area of cleaning. In actual fact, it's just not something that I value highly, and I'm willing to accept the lower standard. And so this is often a point of disagreement. But because I understand that she values cleanliness, I then link that task to fulfilling one of my higher values, which is family, and obviously that being my wife Adriana as part of that family. So essentially, there's a way in which you can do tasks that are lower priority, provided you link them to tasks that are a higher value. And so you're probably thinking, well, what's of high value to me? And let me share. You're already living what's of high value to you. Your life demonstrates what's of high value to you, because unconsciously, that's what you're doing. Although consciously, you're thinking you should or ought to or got to be doing other things. But imperatives that have been injected by us by outer authorities, such as whether it be to fit in socially or whether to apply, abide by religious obligations. They're essentially external injections of values onto us, and our parents do it. Our parents do it out of love. They're injecting their values onto us. For example, my dad really valued education. Growing up, I valued playing sport. I loved playing sport. And education, well, certainly the education that was shared by the state system wasn't, I didn't value much of it. I didn't see the link to my values. If I had have been shown the link to my values, which was health, playing sport, and family, then yes, I probably would have been much more studious going through the education process. However, I kept playing sport and I kept training and I kept playing sport and I kept training. However, my dad was never giving me any acknowledgement for what I was achieving in the area of sport. He was always telling me I should be doing more study. I should be, why aren't I doing my homework? Why am I going out with my friends to play a sport? I should be at home studying. My dad valued education and the traditional education, doing well at school, doing well at university, and then getting a good job. Okay. So that was, he's certainly the values that he was instilling. And it was out of love. There's no doubt about that. And so I guess, given that I wanted my dad's approval, I went along with it, but reluctantly. I struggled through school. I struggled to study, even though I sat there at the desk. I procrastinated, hesitated, and frustrated. All I wanted to do was go and play sport. All I wanted to do was read more about health and how I could eat better or how I could better perform at my sport. But I was only being recognized if I got good marks at school. And I really struggled at that because I just wasn't interested in the schooling system. They had subjects that wasn't of interest to me. And the ones that were, my dad said I shouldn't do because I wouldn't get a well-paid job in that area, such as I loved the PE subject and I did really well in PE. However, my dad said, you're never going to get a career that pays well if you do PE. You need to be doing physics, chemistry, maths, and these other subjects, which I did, but I didn't perform well. And hence where I ended up today, essentially changing careers. So I went through the traditional path of somehow got into university. I don't know how. I got in through the back door of university because I certainly didn't get the HSC marks to get me straight into university. And I just worked because I wanted dad's approval. And I did chemical engineering. I ended up getting honors in chemical engineering. I decided to, I actually enjoyed the practical application of science. So I actually loved it. I loved solving real problems. So I really enjoyed that. So hence probably why I got my act together towards the end of uni. I did fail a couple of subjects at uni, having a good time. And then I went into the workforce and got a good job as an engineer in the workforce and went up the corporate ladder. And Dad was very proud of me. He'd share that with the friends in terms of what was I doing. And but it wasn't fulfilling me. It didn't give me any fulfillment because I wasn't living by my highest values. And so at work, I would procrastinate. I would certainly do what I needed to and get the job done and meet my boss's, what he asked. And in times, depending on what it was, I would do it really well. And there was times where I didn't value it and I wouldn't do it well and I would procrastinate and I'd get warnings or whatever, or lose a percentage of my remuneration or whatever it might be. And then I realized that I was just getting more and more unfulfilled. And so then it brought me to the realization that I wasn't doing what I loved. And now I am today. And hence why I'm very, I don't mind working after hours, or so-called after hours. Back in the day, I didn't like doing after hour work. because I didn't enjoy the work. Whereas now I can actually work all night and all day and nonstop over the weekend. And I actually worked all through the holidays. So it's because I'm doing something that's aligned to my highest values. I do not procrastinate. The inspiration comes from within. So when you're living by your highest values, no one um, needs to give you any motivation. So you don't need to be remunerated. Like remuneration, it is something that I expect because I expect a fair and equal exchange for the service I provide. And otherwise, the otherwise there's that's going to lead to unfulfillment. If you devalue your service, then obviously you're self-depreciating yourself, and the more I value myself, the more my clients will value what I'm offering. So what I would like to share here is how you can determine what your highest values are. And essentially, you need a pen and paper. It's not something you can just listen to. You may have this photographic memory, or it's not really photographic because I'm sharing it in autographic memory. But certainly, it is partly there's around 13 areas that can really help you define where your values are. And it really starts with what you surround your space with. So what is within your space? And then what do you do with what's in your space? For example, what is around me a lot of the time is my family. Well, I work at home. I love working at home because I'm surrounded by my family. So my family and my children, my wife, occupies my space. If it's not them occupying my space, and again, this is that intimate space. It's your intimate circle. And if it's not them, it's my mobile and it's my computer and it's my microphone and it's my earphones here. And so essentially, but why do I value them? And it's because it enables me to facilitate my mission, which is to enhance and enlighten the well-being of others. So my mobile enables me to share my message through social media. It enables me to connect with people, such as I've connected with you all on this forum tonight. It enables me to help my clients. My clients text message me. My clients call me. My clients email me. I can interact with my clients. So I can do of what's highest value to me. I can communicate to my family. That's another value. So my health is a value to me. These devices help me track my health data, help me keep myself accountable. And then again, I can then share my knowledge with these devices that occupy my space, which helps fulfill my mission. And obviously, I allow my family into that intimate space because I really value family. So they're my top three values: is essentially your health, which is the work I do, my vocation. So obviously empowering you in your health and well-being. There's my health. I value my health. So I do a lot to better my health. I'm constantly working on bettering my health. Every year, every month, I'm implementing something new, trying something, experimenting. And then there's my family. So they're my three top highest values. And when I'm living by those values, I'm completely authentic. I have absolute certainty. I don't need any external motivation. All my motivation comes from within. And I'm present in what I'm doing. I'm totally present now. I'm totally here with you. You can probably sense my sense of presence. I'm not distracted. I'm not picking up my phone. I'm not looking around and looking and picking up other noises. I'm completely immersed in this webinar with you. And you'll probably find that I go over time. So I must give you pre-warning that if I go over, you've got every right to dial out. I am recording this, and you can come back and watch the recording. So it's just because there's so much that I want to share, and your health is so important to me, and hence why I spend the time doing it. And I love doing it. I actually lose track of time. So essentially, when you're doing something you love, time seems to just disappear. When you're doing something that you of low value, it is painful. You are watching the time tick by. So that's another indication, is the time thing. If it is just disappearing and you think, where did the time go? You're doing something of high value to you. If you are doing something and watching the hours clock by, so if you turn up to work and you're just looking at the clock and thinking, oh, why isn't it 5 o'clock? Then you are doing something that's of low value, or you haven't linked to your highest values. Again, you can link these things temporarily. Temporarily, the links work. And so I'm doing some temporary linking. So, for example, bookkeeping isn't high value for me. It is administration. However, I've temporarily linked it to say, I want a successful business. A successful business has got to make a profit. So I need to understand my numbers, hence why I'm doing the bookkeeping at the moment, just to understand my numbers, the profit margin, my costs, my operating costs. So paying the bills, understanding my operating costs, understanding what I'm charging, understanding the margin, all that is helping me to help more people, because if I'm profitable, I can continue to serve others. If I'm not, I'm out of business. I'm then going to get employed again, and essentially I'll be unfulfilled. So I've linked bookkeeping to one of my highest values. So the other thing that I've just briefly touched on is time. So where are you spending your time? Okay, so I spend my time doing education, parting what I've learned, my knowledge, empowering my clients with their health and wellness. I spend my time with my family when I'm not doing my vocation. And other than that, I'm doing my health. Outside of that, I don't do much else, simply. So socialization, unless it's related to my highest values, or I can see direct link to my highest values, then I'm not social. You'd call me unsocial. But that's fine, because I am who I am. I'm not trying to put on a mask and say, look, I'm a social person, I'm the life of the party. That's not me. I've got no mask to put on. So I'm being my authentic self and sharing what's of high value to me, and hence probably why you might understand some of the things other things I don't value is driving a car. You'll rarely see me driving a car. And so when people talk about cars, this is the other thing. It's what switches you on, what gets you excited that someone's talking about, right? So when someone's talking about cars, I switch off. Okay, I've got no interest in cars. I don't even like driving them. So when someone starts talking about cars, you lose me. That's when I have an attention deficit disorder. Okay, but I have an attention surplus order is when someone starts talking about health. Okay, you'll see me light up, and hence why I'm lighting up now. So again, it's what lights you up in terms of conversations. If conversations go like, I know Kathy really loves her cats, so, for example. So I can start talking about her cats to Kathy, and she'll tell me about Ginger, and so that's of importance to Kathy. And if you want to improve your communication with other people, understand what's important to them and talk in terms of their values. So I know that not everyone values health. And so I don't impose my values on other people. I will get interested in what is important to them, because then I better understand that person, and I better know how to communicate to that person. If I just go around starting telling people this is what they should be eating, people are just going to disconnect, because if health isn't a high priority, they're going to turn off, and I'll lose that person. I just think, I don't want to talk to you. You just talk health, and I'm not interested in health. But I have other interests other than health. I like talking about my family, and I don't mind talking about the financial markets. It's not my top three, but my top four would be financial independence, and I've empowered myself in that area of financial independence. So I don't mind talking about the markets, for example. So, in terms of how you spend your time, how do you spend your time? So, what do you spend your time doing? I shared what I spend my time doing. What do you spend a lot of your time doing? Is it hanging out with your cats? For example, I know Amy loves children. So she spends a lot of her time with children. And hence why being a nanny is an ideal profession for Amy because it's aligned to one of her highest values. And so she is a really good nanny and gets high reviews, and everyone loves Amy because she's doing something she loves, and people can see that authentic connection. She's doing something that really inspires her, and that inspiration comes from within. No one needs to motivate or give Amy any motivation to go and do nannying. She loves it. She's doing it now, right? And it's, it's late at night, and so that's something of inspiration, or of high value to Amy. I know James, for example. James values his education, and in particularly education around an area of productivity, which is a predominantly, if I were to be un-PC, it's a predominantly productivity is a area. It's a male oriented area. Reproductivity is a female, and again, you could say I'm sexist, but if you really look at evolution, that's how we evolved. But look, there can be females that and males that go. Look, my profession's in a female area, so health is more female orientated. It's more orientated towards reproductive. So one of my values is in the female side, and hence why I'm surrounded in females when I do health, because females are interested in their health. And my number one client is females between 30 and 50. So that's time. So how do you spend your time? How you spend your space? What energizes you? So what spins your wheels? What lifts you up? What excites you? And so there'll be certain things that that really excite you. For example, I love, like before this talk, I went down to the beach and went for a swim. Nature, connecting with nature really lifts me, and I feel really grounded and again inspired to come back and do this. So what brings you inspiration? What energizes you? So I'm energized when I'm playing sport. I'm energized when I'm doing something in relation to my health. So, for example, I never miss a day of exercise, and I don't need any external motivation. It comes totally within because it's of high value to me. And so I don't judge anyone who doesn't exercise because it's just not of high value to them. That everyone's doing what they what fulfills them, and what fulfills them is living by their highest values. People are automatically doing it, but they're sabotaging and self-depreciating themselves because they're injecting values from other people, such as parents, such as brother, sister, such as religious organizations, such as social, and essentially, when you're injecting, it means you're looking up to them and you're minimizing yourself. You're admiring them, but essentially, what you're not doing is loving a part of you, because in that admiration for them, there's something that you've got within you that is what you admire in them, but you're too humble to own it. And so it's very important to look at the admirable traits that you see in others, and you'll start to see a trend across them. And, when I look at people, I've looked up to, that, I admire them for their work ethic, but I actually have that work ethic. It's just in a different area. It might not be in, for example, it might not be in cars. It's, my area is in health. But I certainly have the work ethic. It's there within me. I own it. But some people look up to others, and like, for example, around their body image or something. But that trait is within them in some part of their life, but in a different form that they're just not owning. And so we have all these traits that we admire in others. It's essentially a disowned part. It's something we're just too humble to admit. And likewise, when we're injecting our values into others, it's essentially, it's something within us that we're resenting within us, and we put them down. And so therefore we impose our values on them because we see them as someone inferior to us. We put ourselves on a pedestal. And again, it's because there's a side of you that that's overinflated, and essentially it's that super ego that you're then projecting onto that other person. And again, it can go both ways. So what energizes you? The other thing is in terms of where you are most organized. So I'm very organized in, like, I turned up to, I was ahead of time in this webinar, for example. But when someone organizes a social event, I'll generally be late. I'll procrastinate, hesitate, frustrate, unless I see value or that social event linked to my highest values. So if that social event is playing sport, absolutely, I'll be there ahead of time. If that event is like hanging out in a pub, I'm always late, or I don't go. Okay. So that's where I procrastinate. And people will say that I'm not social, but I'm social in my areas of high value. So I'm very social in areas of health, family. But I'm not, again, you could classify me not social in certain other areas. So where are you most organized in terms of your order? So I'm very organized in terms of my exercise, right? So I already have tomorrow mapped out as to what I'm doing. I already have days ahead mapped out as to what I'm doing because I'm organized. I organize myself and I organize my day around getting my exercise done. So nothing actually gets in the way of my exercise. If you don't value exercise, exercise will keep being delayed, deferred, and you'll push it out because, or you haven't linked exercise to your highest values. So the question you want to ask yourself is, how is doing exercise or linked to my highest values? So if, like, for example, I mentioned James, one of his high values is on that productive side, that male side. So he wants to be very successful, wants to create something, wants to make a difference, and we all do in this world. And he wants to know the most productive path of getting there. And so if I then spoke to James, I would then say, exercise. If you exercise, what it does is it essentially can help de-stress you. And when you're in an unstressed environment, you're more present, you're more centered, you're more focused, and that will make you more productive. And so straight away, I've linked exercise to his highest value, or one of his highest values, which is productivity. And so then I'd ask James again, how is exercise helping you fulfill your highest values? And I'm keep asking that question until he's got so many neural pathways, and he's got so many connections to exercise fulfilling his highest value. He will be inspired within to exercise, and he won't need external motivation. He won't need someone to go and tell him to exercise if he can see a direct pathway and it's linked to his highest value. But he's got to be able to see that. And you'll need to ask yourself a number of times. So me just asking it once, or me sharing that example, is probably not enough for James if he doesn't still see the value. I would need to come up with a number. It could be up to 10, 20 connections to his highest value or highest values in order for him just to wake up and spontaneously exercise. So again, if it's not of high value, then you need to link it to your highest values in order for it to happen. Otherwise, you'll unconsciously do something else and consciously beat yourself up. Okay, and that is essentially you're self-depreciating yourself. and you're lowering your self-worth and you lower your certainty. You feel very, I guess, overwhelmed. You feel like you're a failure. Again, all this is just a sign that you're doing things of low value and it's not of high value, because all that disappears. I have certainty when I'm talking about topics that are of high value to me. I have no certainty when I'm talking about cars, for example. I've got no idea what I'm talking about. I know cars have got four wheels and a steering wheel, and they get me from A to B. But outside of that, like, people talk about these, rotor engines and these electronic fuel injections and stuff like that. And look, I just switch off unless it's linked to my highest value, or unless I'm really wanting to understand that person and better develop a relationship with that person. Then I will connect with saying, oh, I want to deepen my connection with this person. Therefore, I'm going to be present and immerse myself in what's of value to them. So we talked about where you're most organized. Where are you most disciplined? Where are you most disciplined? Again, I'm very disciplined around exercise. I'm very disciplined around picking up my kids, I'm very disciplined around food in the house. So I'll always make sure there's vegetables, there's fruit, there's whole foods in the house, because health is of value to me. My family is important to me, and I know that a healthy family is of great value to me. So I am very disciplined around making sure I order food and I don't rely on takeaway, or I get caught out. And I don't like, so for example, I'm so disciplined and organized in my area of health. When I go on the plane, I will either eat a meal before I get on the flight, or I'll take food with me on the flight, because I know what they get going to serve up won't align to my highest values. And I'll just be frustrated and annoyed and upset. So then I'll become very disciplined and organized to make sure I've got healthy food, or what is healthy for my health goals, with me. Okay, so I'm again thinking ahead, planning ahead, and again, in our areas of highest value, where we're truly inspired from within, we will have a strategic vision. We will have a strategic plan. We will see, we'll see both sides. Essentially, we can see the advantages of doing something. We also see the disadvantages and the things that we need to put in place to, for example, I don't like slipping up with my health, because health is a high value. So I put things in place to ensure that I'm not going to slip up. For example, if I know I'm going out to a function and it's going to be a certain food, or it's like a pub, and I'm going to struggle to find something on the menu, I will then I'll actually eat before and then just drink water when I'm there. It's not that I'm being unsocial. It's just that I'm fulfilling my highest values, and I'm fulfilled in that moment. People think, you're not living life, but I'm completely aligned to who I am. I'm living a full life. So again, where you are most organized and disciplined. Now, where do you spend your time? I mean, sorry, I said that. Where do you spend your money? So besides the basics of life, the necessities to live, such as your roof on your head and food to feed you, beyond that, where does your money go? What are you spending your money on? Because what you're spending your money on is something that you value. For example, I spend my money on Aura Ring. I have an Apple Watch, but it's charging at the moment. So Apple Watch, again, these are all linked to my highest value. Aura Ring gives me sleep data. My Apple Watch gives me movement data. It helps me with my work because I can communicate, I get messages and whatnot. So I help fulfill my highest values. I spend my money on my microphones, my computers, and this helps me facilitate what brings me inspiration, that's empowering your health. So I invest in my podcast. I've invested a lot of money into my podcast, but that's a medium at which I can share my information with others. I invest my money into the markets because I want to make money work for me. I don't want to be a slave to money. I just want to do what I love and not have any worry about money. So I'm constantly ensuring my money's working for me. And I've done this through empowering myself, educating myself in how do I become financially independent. So that's where I invest my money into the market. I invest my money into my business, which is fulfilling my highest value, which is enhancing and enlightening the well-being of others. And I spend my money on my family. So it will be, supporting my family, schooling, education, their health, their what inspires them. So my daughter she's a big advocate for sustainability and the environment. She's inspired within to make a difference around sustainability and the environment. So she's now set up her own podcast, and I help her with that. I'm investing my money into her business to helping her get started in an area that she's inspired within. I'm not imposing my values on my daughter. I'm not saying you need to be healthy. You have to be healthy. You ought to be healthy. Whenever whenever you hear the words should, or you're saying this to yourself, should, ought to, got to, I need to, I have to, they're other people injecting values onto you. They're not within. So when you say, I am enthused, I'd love to, I want to, I desire. These words are transcendental, transcendental words that are beyond that area of being intrinsically motivated or intrinsically driven. This is inspired within, intrinsically. I love doing this, for example. But I tell you what, you won't see me driving a car tomorrow. You won't see me at the pub. You won't see me. You get where I'm coming from. So where do you spend your money? We mentioned about conversations. Where does your light bulb get switched on? Where are you an extrovert? Okay, what area are you an extrovert? That is another area. And again, list them down. And what you'll start to see as you're doing these lists in these various areas, you'll see commonality. You'll see common things, common theme pop up. And those ones that are most common go to the highest. They're the highest value to you. They score the most points, the ones that are most common, the ones that keep repeating themselves. And hence, like, in terms of I know my top three. Okay, so where are you constantly setting goals that you're showing evidence of coming true? So again, it's not setting, again, if you're setting a goal that you think you ought to be doing or you should be doing, and you're procrastinating on it, then it's not a high value. It's the goals you're setting that you can see coming to fruition of high value to you. So for me, for example, my health, whenever I set goals in my health, they just happen, right? They always have, and hence health is a higher value to me. No one needs to tell me to go and work. I do it every morning without, I look forward to doing this, right? So this is something that I really love doing. I just can't wait. I did a presentation at UTS. I did a lecture to students at UTS today. I love doing that. I'm back here tonight doing, imparting my knowledge with you. And I love doing this because I really want you to be authentic and live a life that's truly worth living, and be totally inspired within. So look, okay, we're up to this slide. I've been talking about values on the other slide, but anyway, it's this slide. So but the slides are just visuals, right? It saves you having to look at my face. So Yeah, so essentially, we're talking about where you're setting, goals, and that they're coming to fruition. That's you want to start listing those areas. Uh, Now, so we've done how you spend your time, space, energy. We've done organized, disciplined. We've done um, where you spend your money, where you do your where you set your goals and they're coming to fruition. Um, we've done the extroversion, where you're an extroverted, what you love talking about, and people can't shut you up. So people, if they start asking me about health, then they won't shut me up, and they'll think, "Oh shit, what did I ask him about that?" Um, so that's another area where you're extroverted, because we do have an introvert within us. I'm very introverted when the conversation is about cars, or the conversation is about the royal family, or the conversation is about some model or some influencer. Yeah. So anyway, but if the conversation is about health, or about my family, uh, or about my business, then you won't shut me up. So in light of time, I'm actually going to move on, but I think you've got the idea of how to start defining your values. Like, another area is, what do you constantly read about? Where are you seeking more knowledge? So I'm constantly seeking more knowledge and constantly doing more courses in the area of health and well-being. But I'm not reading about cars. You'll never catch, other areas, that people know. And I certainly know Kathy knows this, that, I follow the rugby league, Parramatta Eels, and my team. So I do read articles about them. They're a team I follow. Again, I love watching sport. I love playing sport. I probably love playing sport more than watching it. Again, yeah. So where are you constantly seeking education, or what are you constantly reading about that's educating you? Where do you, again, the people you admire, where are they? There'd be some commonalities about the people you admire or look up to. Um, so it might be the business they have, or the success in a particular area that you look up to, and then you want to look up other people. What is a common thread across these people you look up to? Uh, Mine is health gurus, for example, people that are imparting knowledge about psychology, about physical health, about whatever aspect of health and well-being. I'm always looking up to those people and absorbing like sponges in terms of what they've got to share. I'm listening to podcasts that are about health. I actually listen to podcasts that are about creating financial independence. That's another podcast I listen to. But outside of that, I'm not listening to crime podcasts, romantic podcasts, comedy podcasts. It's not of high value to me. What podcasts are you listening to? What and again, what gives you tears of inspiration? So that, there'll be certain words in a song that brings a tear of inspiration. You feel that tear of inspiration. It's not a tear of sorrow, it's a tear of inspiration. It's where you connect with your authentic self. So there'll be words in songs, or certain songs that do that. There'll be certain movies or documentaries or something. What is it? What's common? And write out the words that you're expressing that tear of gratitude, and you write them out, and you'll see that it's pointing you to be you. Essentially, it's pointing you in the direction of being you, and not trying to be someone else or trying to please someone else. It's essentially guiding you in the direction of being you. So that's another few areas. And yeah, I'll probably leave it there. I think I've really covered this area of values. And so you will never procrastinate. You'll be so productive in these if you're doing tasks and setting goals in these areas of high value to you. You'll only ever procrastinate in areas that are of low value to you. Okay. And there's no right or wrong. You are completely you. And that's what's so special about you and the special space you occupy on this earth or as a spiritual being. That blueprint of you is what the world wants to see. And essentially your values will take you on that path. And it's good to check in on your values, because as you go through the generation or the decades, essentially your values can change and alter a bit. But everyone has a complete unique set of values. There'll be some similarities, but your is blueprint specific. Okay, it's completely unique to you. There's no two people with exactly the same set of values in the same priority and of the same description. Again, you can, what is family? Okay, so my family is it's how I define my family. But in terms of how my wife defines her family, it's much broader. It goes cousins, second cousins, third cousins, fourth. I don't go that far. So again, it's within your definition. Like, so when I say family, it's my definition of what my family is, what my family unit is. And again, friends can come into that family unit. It's what I define as my family. And it's the same as health. Like, there's aspects of health and wellness that I'm truly interested in. There's others that, like, so more the physical side, I probably do less study in the physical side. So in terms of the anatomy, but the physiology and the pathophysiology and the psychology, all those areas, like the nutrition, they're of huge interest to me. But in terms of like anatomy and areas of massage, I have a broad understanding. I am interested. I do switch on to it, but I don't dig deep in those areas. So again, my value is blueprint specific to me. And so I really want you to come away from this webinar to really start thinking about what's truly of high value to you and live it. Because the moment you start, injecting the values of others and start thinking you should be or ought to be or got to be like them, again, it's futile, because you're not being you. You can only be the best version of you. You don't want to be second at being someone else. What's the point? They're doing the best version of them. You might as well be the best version of you. There's no competition. Okay. When you are being you, there's absolutely no competition. So don't, comparison is absolutely futile. You only want to compare yourself as to how you are progressing in terms of living out your highest values. How are you progressing in those metrics? So I measure myself in terms of how many people I'm reaching, or how many people I'm sharing knowledge with. So how many podcasts am I doing? How many webinars am I doing? How many live talks am I doing? How many clients am I seeing? These are all my measures. And I'm just comparing myself to where I want to be, and how am I making progress to where I want to be? And so I'm constantly forever tweaking, like, my podcasting to really build a following, and again, they're connecting with me. I'm building an authentic podcast. I'm not trying to copy what's the guy, Joe Rogan, for example. I'm not trying to copy him. I'm being the best version of me, and I'll attract people that I resonate with. But again, I'm not going to attract everyone. Not everyone's going to admire me. Some people will look down on me. That's fine. I can accept that, because I'm being who I am, and I'm only going to be me, and I'm not going to put on any personas. And so this is, so in terms of what to do, so I've also, okay. So when you are not living by, or if someone's asking you to do something and it's not aligned to your highest values, and you can't temporarily link it. You can't find any linkage. You look for linkages. So, if someone asked me to go to a car show, I'm going to say, get effed. Or I think Kathy would like to hear me say, get fucked. So, essentially, um, don't do it, because I would be at the car show and moping and thinking, looking at the clock, when is this going to be over? And all the car enthusiasts were going, oh, you're such a boring person. Why did we ask you to this? And I'd be thinking, yeah, why did you ask me to do this? I don't want to be here either. And so I don't do it. If people ask me to go to the pub, you won't see me at the pub unless I find some linkage to my highest values. Um, I don't go to the pub. But if you ask me to do some sporting events, go and play some sport, I'll do that. If you go and ask me to join you for exercise, I'll go and do that. Again, there's this. I work within my highest values, and I feel very fulfilled every day because I just live by my highest values, and I dump everything else. And I'm quite happy to say no. I say no, no, thank you. And that's all I need to say. And yes, people will judge you, but I'm being me. And when I'm being me, I'm fulfilled, and I don't need any vice. So when you're not being you, that's when you'll go to addictions. Okay, you're looking for fulfillment externally. Okay, this is how religion starts. It's because they're looking for a savior outside. Okay, they're not looking to within themselves for the savior within them. We all have our own savior. We don't need some external savior. Again, it's being you, and you won't need anything. Like I don't need to overeat. I don't need to drink copious amounts of alcohol. I don't need to take drugs. I don't need to gamble because I'm totally fulfilled within. And again, if you're living by your highest values, you won't need these other areas that support that fulfillment. So people do these external things to give them to provide them some temporary fulfillment. It doesn't give them external fulfillment. Being you will give you external fulfillment. And you'll be the best version of you, and essentially you'll be creating a legacy, and you'll be passing it on to generations because you have a vision much broader, bigger than yourself. When you're being you, you will just love what you do, and you'll just want to do more of it, and you'll want to grow it, and you'll be willing to take on any challenge in an area of your highest value. You don't like challenges. You see them as painful. You perceive them as painful when they're low value. You'll run away from them because they're low value to you. So recently I've had a whole lot of IT issues, and solving IT problems or digging deep into IT isn't of high value to me. Obviously, I need my IT to fulfill my work. But for me, it is like I'll find another computer. I'll go looking for another computer. Give me one that works. Give it to someone else to resolve. So I delegated it to my external IT division, which Kathy knows is Jacob, PowerNet IT. He's a plug for PowerNet IT. So if you're having any IT issues and IT isn't of high value to you, delegate it to someone else that is of high value. So I know Jacob loves solving IT problems. So I give it that I fulfill his highest value. And that's fair and equal exchange. Enables me to fulfill my highest value, which is doing this. Okay, I've got a computer to do this, whilst my other computer's getting fixed. Okay, so I can do what I love. Jacob's doing what he loves. That's a world where we're all doing what we love. We're all being who we are, and we're adding great value to the world. We're not trying to be second best of someone else. So dump things that aren't of high value. Define your values and dump. Dump, delegate is the other one. So delegate. I delegate IT to Jacob from PowerNet ITs. And for example, I focus on what I am truly inspired to do, which is doing this. I focus on educating myself so I can add more value to my education. Um, so yeah, so essentially delegate the low priority things, the things that aren't like, so I don't drive. I hate driving a car. So I ask my wife to drive the car, or I jump in a bus, or I get an Uber, or I get public transport, or I walk, or I ride a bike. You'll rarely see me, and Kathy can vouch for this. So she sees me ride bikes to social functions. I get the bus to our business networking group. I don't drive. I don't like driving cars. I delegate it. For me, I'd much rather be on a bus, you know, posting something that's of value around health to someone, to impart my wisdom to someone else. Or I want to be helping my clients on the bus. I don't want to be driving a car and getting frustrated in traffic. I don't get turned on by the power of the car or the grunt or it doesn't turn me on. It's not of high value. So delegate lower priority tasks. And again, if for whatever reason you're struggling with the delegation temporarily, because again, you won't be able to get fulfilled if you're constantly doing lower priority tasks. Your day will constantly just fill up with lower priority tasks. So at some point, you really got to start delegating and letting go. But if you need to do it for whatever reason, link it, find a link to your highest values, and it'll be a lot easier. You won't procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate as much. Okay, I'm right on the hour, which is good because we're pretty much through I've covered linking your highest values. I've given examples of linking, temporarily linking lower priority to your highest values. Again, you'll be feeling very unfulfilled if it's becoming a more permanent thing. So certainly I won't be doing my bookkeeping forever. It's a temporarily thing I'm doing just to really understand my business, understand the operating costs, understanding what I'm charging. Am I making profit? I'm just doing it temporarily, just so I can grow my business and obviously have a successful business so I can fulfill my mission. Okay. Well, if this has been of value, I've got a program that you might be interested. This is my infomercial. Amy knows all about it, so Amy, you might want to tune out. You're joining me on this program. James and Kathy, you may be interested, or you may know of someone that could be interested in this program. So it'd be worth just tuning in. So in this program, I'm very much going to be helping you find your highest values. And helping you set your goals aligned to your highest values. And then also in that process, I'm going to be helping you dissolve the emotional baggage that's holding you back. So if there's certain things that are that is perceived trauma or perceived hardship or heartbreak in your life, and you're constantly thinking about it and it's occupying space and time in your mind, you need to dissolve that in order to create the space to do inspirational work. Whilst that's in your mind, it's occupying space and time, it will continue to frustrate you, and you will feel overwhelmed, disorganized, not progressing. And again, it's because this baggage is holding you back. So I'll be taking you through a process which you, with my help, can dissolve this baggage, and it works. I work it with my clients. Amy can vouch for this. I've been working with Amy for a little while now. I've done, recently I've been helping my kids. So for example, my Sophia had a food allergy, and I actually dissolved the food allergy because it was associated with a fight that she witnessed between me and my wife. Yes, so I am human. I have a what you could perceive as a nice side, and then a mean side, or a nasty side, or a fighting side. And so that was a very traumatic experience for my daughter. And I went through this DeMartini process, neutralized that charge she had on that event, that then because she was eating these foods whilst she was watching this fight. Again, it wasn't a physical fight, it was a verbal fight. But Sophia had an addiction and a fantasy as to how relationships should be. Again, it's a fantasy. It was injected on her by a TV program, which I eventually got around to. And I dissolved the fantasy around this is the way relationships are. I dissolved that. I neutralized that. I neutralized the perception she had between the fight with me and my wife, Adriana. And she doesn't have this food allergy anymore. My son kept having nightmares, kept waking up in the night, running to the bed, jumping in the bed with us. We're getting frustrated because it was squishy in the bed, and he's getting quite big. Again, I dissolved that nightmare. He had again, it was through watching television, a perception of what might happen to him in the dark. And so essentially, there's only three things that we can control in life, and that's our perceptions, our decisions, and our actions. And so essentially, we perceive trauma because what we take away from the trauma is more downsides, more negative than upsides of what happened. But if you ask the right questions, you will then start to see the hidden order in what happened, and you'll start to balance the perception, and you'll have no charge, no emotional charge. So whenever we have an emotional charge, essentially we have an imbalanced perception. We're seeing more positives than negatives. Again, we'll go towards that. So for example, again, this is how addictions work. We see more upsides than downsides, and hence we're driven towards doing that. Again, this can be neutralized. That perception can be neutralized by asking yourself the question, what are the downsides? What are the downsides? Keep asking the question until you feel a physical shift in your body, and you'll feel like an emotional shift. Like, so I was working with a client recently who came into the consult a 9 out of 10 with anxiety. And eventually we got it down below 3 by I just kept asking her questions to balance her perception. And we just kept doing that through the course of the consultation. And her anxiety dropped to she was no longer anxious about it. I've worked with clients where they weren't talking to their father or their mother, and essentially at the end of the consultation, the first thing they wanted to do was call their mother or father. And so this is how powerful, by asking the right questions, we really have a more essentially, you'll probably hear this saying, is the quality of life is determined by the quality of questions we ask. And so we can control our perceptions by asking the right questions. In this process, in this course that I'm facilitating, I will empower you with the right questions to ask, so you have this skill set for life. And so essentially, there'll be no trauma or what you perceive as trauma. So anyway, this is the sort of work, I guess I wanted to share that story to help share what sort of work that we're going to be doing in this program. You've probably read the slides. This is essentially the timeology in terms of how it's going to unfold. And certainly, if you know of anyone that would be interested, please let me know, and happy to have a conversation with them to see whether it's the right thing for them. Again, I don't impose this on anyone. I will ask the right questions and see whether it's the right fit for them. It's the same with you. I'm not imposing this on you. I'm just sharing what I'm running. And if it's right for you, if it aligns to you, then please join me. Again, you can just, I think I know everyone, you've all emailed me before, so you can email me if you need to. I covered this slide essentially in a bit in what I was sharing around the story and what I shared around values. But this is some of the questions. So for example, it's identifying who you're infatuated with, who you're admiring and you're submissing to, or you're putting yourself down, or essentially self-depreciating yourself. Or is it someone that you're looking down on and you're resenting and you don't want them in your life? And so it's identifying these people. It's actually identifying what they've done in terms of the action or inaction towards you, or is it a physical trait that you can't stand about them? And then there's this is one of the questions I take you through, is then actually what we see in others is something we're disowning in ourselves. We're not finding the form of which it resides in ourselves. And so everything that we resent or dislike about someone else is actually something that we're disowning and resenting about ourselves. And we can't love ourselves until we can love the whole us and own what we're resenting in other people or disliking in other people. So the first part of the activity is actually you owning what you dislike in someone else. So for example, if you dislike someone cutting you off in traffic, I don't get angry over that. I just start straight away, think back to a time where I've cut someone off in traffic. Okay. And I own that action. I've done that. I've done it just as much as that person's just done it to me. So there's no emotion to it. I'm just thinking, well, because I've owned that in me, I don't resent that person cutting me off. I just think, well, yeah, okay, they've cut me off, but that's what it is. It's not nothing to get road rage over. Again, if you can get an imbalanced perception and it drives an emotion, you get angry, and then that anger is essentially occupying time and space in your mind and taking you away from, and again, you might then seek fulfillment in external things, such as if someone's cut you off, you got very angry, you might go home and have a bottle of wine. And then you sort of wake up the next morning and think, oh, I didn't really need that bottle because I got all these things to do today or whatever. Again, you can balance the perception, not let the emotion take control of you and then dominate you. You can actually balance that perception and be the governor, have this self-governance by balancing your perception and asking, when have you done what you're disliking in them? Own it. There'll be some time when you've done something similar or it could be exactly the same. And just keep owning it until you completely feel the shift in you. You don't feel any anger. So if you still feel anger and resentment to someone, then you haven't asked yourself the question enough times. You need to keep asking yourself till you can feel that shift in emotion, to that emotion's totally neutralized. There's no anger or resentment. It's completely neutral. Just like I talk about that event that transpired over the holidays. I don't have any emotion. I mean, I'm not crying. I don't ask for self-pity. I don't label it. Again, I can share the story. It's very recent. I was able to share that story the night with my wife without breaking down because I neutralized it. Again, this is part of the activity. So I think I've shared a lot and gone well over. Sorry for occupying an hour and a half of your time. Well, I hope it's been of value, or you certainly wouldn't be on if it wasn't of value, or you wouldn't have stayed on. So essentially, this is the summary slide. And again, I will be sharing a copy if you want to go through this again, or if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation and to answer any questions because I've spoken so much. But that's essentially the presentation. There's more of this information on my podcast. You can QR code this or take a photo thing and get a direct link to my podcast. And I just wish you a fantastic evening. I'll just check the chat. There's no chat. All good. I thank you so much for joining me. I will share the recording. Feel free to reach out if you've got any further questions or if something hasn't made any sense. I'm more than happy to spend the time to go through it with you so it does make sense. And as I said, if you know of anyone that could benefit from that program or some of the wisdom I've shared tonight, please let them know that I'm happy to call them and have a chat to see whether it's the right fit for them. And again, I won't impose it on them. I will just ask questions to see whether it's the right fit for them. Awesome. Have a great evening. And thank you so much for your comments. And Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Amy. And thank you, James. I really appreciate you joining me, and have a great evening, and stay in touch. Take care.